Have you ever had a night where everything collapsed at once? Where the thing you had been running from finally caught up with you? Where the weight of every wrong decision, every year of running, every relationship you broke, landed on your chest all at once, in the dark, alone. Jacob had that night, and it became the most important night of his entire life, because in the middle of that night, someone came to him in the dark. And what happened next is one of the strangest, most raw, most unexplainable encounters in all of Scripture. Welcome back to the Promise Path TV. We have been following Jacob's story, the deceiver, the schemer, the man who grabbed the blessing by fraud and then spent 20 years running from the consequences. And tonight Jacob runs out of road. Tonight he is alone at a river called the Jabbok. Tomorrow he will face his brother Esau, the man who once swore to kill him. And tonight, in the hours before that confrontation, something happens to Jacob that will leave him permanently changed. Genesis chapter 32. The night Jacob wrestled with God and lived. To feel the full weight of this night, we need to understand what brought Jacob to the Jabbok. When we last saw Jacob in Genesis 27, he had just stolen Esau's blessing. His brother was furious. His mother sent him away, and Jacob fled to live with his uncle Laban in a distant land. 20 years passed. Jacob worked for Laban. He was deceived by Laban, just as he had deceived others. He married. He had children. He became wealthy. And all that time, the unresolved rupture with his brother sat in the background. The thing he had never faced. The relationship he had never repaired. And then God spoke. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." Genesis 31, verse 3. Go back. Not to a new adventure. Not to fresh territory. Back. To the place he had run from. To the brother he had wronged. And as Jacob traveled home, he sent messengers ahead to find Esau. They came back with terrifying news. When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." Genesis 32, verse 6. 400 men. Esau was not coming for a reunion. He was coming with an army. In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. Genesis 32, verse 7. Great fear and distress. Jacob, the schemer, the manipulator, the man who always had a plan, was terrified. He prayed. He divided his camp as a precaution. He sent wave after wave of gifts ahead to try to soften Esau's anger. And then he sent his entire family across the river. And he was left alone. Jacob, alone, in the dark, at the Jabbok River, stripped of every scheme, every resource, every distraction. Just him and the night and the sound of rushing water. And everything he had never dealt with. I want to stop here and recognize something. God arranged for Jacob to be alone. Not abandoned, not forsaken, but alone. Specifically, intentionally, purposefully alone. Because what was about to happen could only happen in the absence of every distraction. No family to manage. No servants to organize. No problem to solve. Just Jacob, and God, and the truth. Have you ever been brought to a place like that? A season where everything you normally use to avoid yourself was taken away. Where the noise went quiet. Where the busyness stopped. Where you were left alone with the thing you had been running from. Those seasons are terrifying. And they're often the most sacred moments of your entire life. Because God does some of his deepest work not in the crowds, but in the solitude. Not in the celebration, but in the crisis. Not when everything is going well, but when you have run out of road. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still. Sometimes God has to remove everything else before we will finally be still enough to meet him. Jacob was still. The river rushed. The dark pressed in. And then someone came. And then the most mysterious verse in Genesis. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. Genesis 32, verse 24. A man wrestled with him till daybreak. Who is this man? The text calls him a man. But before the night is over, Jacob will say, "I saw God face to face." And the prophet Hosea will look back on this night and call the wrestler the angel. And theologians across centuries have called this a theophany, a visible appearance of God himself. But right now, in the darkness, Jacob does not know who he is fighting. He only knows one thing: he will not let go. They wrestled through the night, hour after hour, in the dark, by the river. No crowd, no witnesses, no record except the text we hold in our hands. And then, when the dawn was beginning to break, the stranger did something unexpected. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Genesis 32, verse 25. Stop. Read that again. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, the one wrestling with Jacob, the one who turned out to be God, could not overpower him? Does that mean Jacob was stronger than God? Of course not. It means God chose not to overpower him. He was holding back, wrestling within limits, giving Jacob the chance to hold on. Because the whole point was not to break Jacob. The whole point was to reveal what was in Jacob. And what was in Jacob was this: he would not let go. And then, with a touch, God wrenched his hip out of its socket. One touch. That is all it took. The man who could not overpower Jacob dislocated his hip with a single touch, to show Jacob and to show us who was really in control all along. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. The hip is wrenched. The night is almost over. But Jacob will not release his grip. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Genesis 32, verse 26. I will not let you go unless you bless me. His hip is dislocated. He is in pain. The sun is rising. The man is asking to leave. And Jacob, broken, exhausted, clinging, says, "Not until you bless me." That is the most honest prayer in the Bible. Not polished, not theological, not carefully worded. Just a wounded man in the dark saying, "I need something from you, and I am not letting go until I get it." Have you ever prayed like that? Not a Sunday morning prayer, not a polite request, but a Jabbok prayer, desperate, raw, clinging, refusing to release until something changes? I will not let you go unless you bless me. That kind of prayer moves heaven. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Matthew 7, verse 7. The word for knock in the original Greek is a persistent, repeated knocking. Not a polite tap. A knock that will not stop. The kind of faith that says, "I am not leaving this place without an answer." And then the stranger asked Jacob a question. "What is your name?" God already knew his name. This was not a question about information. This was an invitation to confession. Because in the ancient world, a name was not just a label. A name was an identity, a character, a story. And Jacob's name, the name his parents gave him at birth, meant heel grabber, supplanter, deceiver. From the moment he was born, grabbing his twin brother's heel, his name told the story of who he was. A grasper, a schemer, a man who got what he wanted by taking it from others. And God asked, "What is your name?" Say it. Confess it. Own who you have been. Jacob, he answered. Genesis 32, verse 27. Jacob, deceiver. That is who I am. And in that confession, in that moment of seeing himself clearly, everything was about to change. And then the stranger said something that rewrote Jacob's entire identity. Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. Genesis 32, verse 28. Israel, not deceiver, not heel grabber, not the schemer. One who struggles with God and overcomes. One who wrestles with God and lives. From this moment forward, Jacob would carry a new name. And from his sons would come the 12 tribes of Israel. And the nation that bore his new name would become the people through whom the Messiah came. All of it rooted in this moment. A broken man at a river, in the dark, refusing to let go. The name change is not just a nice moment. It is a declaration of what the wrestling was actually about. Jacob had spent his whole life fighting for things in his own strength. fighting for the birthright, fighting for the blessing, scheming, grabbing, running, managing. And now, for the first time, he fought with God. Not against God. With God. Clinging to God. Refusing to release God. And that fight, that desperate, painful all-night wrestling, was the most honest and faith-filled thing Jacob had ever done. And God renamed him for it. And Jacob, now Israel, walked away from the Jabbok with a limp. The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Genesis 32, verse 31. The sun rose, and he limped. For the rest of his life, Jacob walked with a limp. Every step was a reminder of the night at the Jabbok. Every step said, I met God, and I will never be the same. The wound was permanent, and it was a gift, because it meant he could never rely on his own strength again. Every morning he got up, his hip reminded him, you do not walk in your strength. You walk in his. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34, verse 18. The wound is where God is closest. The limp is the proof that you have been with him. Let me bring the Jabbok River into your world right now. Because this is not just a story about an ancient man and a mysterious night. This is a story about what God does with people who refuse to give up. People who are broken enough to be honest. And honest enough to hold on. Lesson 1. God sometimes leads you to a Jabbok before he leads you to a breakthrough. Jacob could not cross into his future without crossing the Jabbok. He could not face Esau without first facing God. He could not receive a new name without confessing the old one. Your Jabbok is not a detour from your destiny. It is the threshold of it. The crisis that feels like the end is often the doorway to the beginning. We also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. Romans 5, verses 3 and 4. Lesson 2. God wrestles with you. He does not abandon you. The stranger did not appear at the Jabbok to destroy Jacob. He appeared to engage him, to wrestle with him, to be present with him in his darkest night. God's wrestling is not his punishment. It is his presence. When life feels like a fight you cannot win, God has not left the ring. He is right there, in the struggle, with you. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. Isaiah 43, verse 2. Lesson 3. The I will not let go prayer is the most powerful prayer you can pray. Jacob's prayer at the Jabbok was not eloquent. It was not theological. It was desperate, clinging, refusing to release. I will not let you go unless you bless me. God responds to that kind of faith. Not the polished performance of someone who has it all together, but the raw, honest, I have nothing left faith of someone who simply will not let go. Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. Luke 18, verse 1. Always pray and not give up, even when the night is long, even when the hip hurts, even when the dawn seems far away. Do not let go. Lesson 4. God asks, what is your name, before he gives you a new one. Before Jacob could receive the name Israel, he had to say the name Jacob. He had to own who he had been. Deceiver. Schemer. Heel grabber. Transformation does not begin with pretending. It begins with honesty. God cannot rename what we refuse to name. He cannot heal what we will not acknowledge. He cannot transform what we keep hiding. What is your name? What is the identity you have been carrying that was never meant to define you? Say it to God, in the dark, honestly. Because the name he has for you on the other side of that confession is better than anything you have called yourself. To the one who is victorious, I will give a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to the one who receives it. Revelation 2, verse 17. Lesson 5. The limp is not a shame, it is a testimony. Jacob limped for the rest of his life. And every person who saw him walk knew something happened to that man. He carries the mark of a night with God. Your wound, the thing you thought would disqualify you, maybe the very thing that makes people ask, what happened to you? And the answer you give could be the most powerful testimony in the room. I wrestled with God, and I lived, and I will never be the same. For when I am weak, then I am strong. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 10. We started tonight at a river. In the dark. Alone. With everything stripped away. We watched a broken man refuse to let go. We watched God ask, "What is your name?" And we watched a deceiver, a schemer, a heel grabber, confess who he was, and receive a name he never could have earned. Maybe you're at your Jabbok tonight. Maybe the night is long. Maybe the hip hurts. Maybe you cannot see the dawn yet. Maybe you have been running for years from something you have never faced. And tonight, in the quiet, it has all caught up with you. I want to say something directly to you. Do not run from this night. This is not the end of your story. This is the Jabbok, the threshold, the turning point, the place where God meets the people who refuse to let go. Hold on. The dawn is coming, and your new name is waiting on the other side of this night. Would you pray this with me? God, I am at my Jabbok. I am done running. I am done pretending. I confess who I have been. I will not let you go until you bless me. Rename me. Remake me. I do not need to walk out of this night the same person who walked in. I trust you in this struggle. Hold me here until the dawn. Amen. If that prayer was real for you tonight, drop the word PENIEL in the comments. PENIEL, the name Jacob gave to that place. It means, I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. Drop that word as a declaration that you have been in God's presence tonight, and that you will never be the same. I will be praying for every single person who leaves it. If this video has wrestled with your heart, please do these 3 things. Number 1, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because next week we follow Jacob as he finally faces Esau. After 20 years of running, after the Jabbok, after the new name, 2 brothers, 1 reunion, and a moment of grace that will leave you undone. Do not miss it. Number 2, share this video with someone who is in a dark night right now. Someone who feels like they are losing a fight they cannot win. Be the one who tells them, hold on. The dawn is coming. God wrestles with the people he loves. Number 3, like this video. 2 seconds. It sends this message to more people who need to hear it tonight. Jacob limped out of the Jabbok at sunrise. Broken. Renamed. Never the same. And he walked straight toward the brother he had wronged. Not with a scheme. Not with a plan. With a limp. And a new name. And the mark of a night with God. That is what the Jabbok does. It does not make you stronger in yourself. It makes you weaker so that his strength is all you walk in. This is the Promise Path TV, where Bible stories come alive. One powerful story at a time. God bless you. I'll see you next week for the reunion.